Hey guys, Graveyard Graham. Welcome back to the Midnight Ride. The first 3 episodes of season 3 of Reacher just dropped. Uh, Perfect timing. They came at the end of a long and arduous week at work, so it was nice to decompress and just play some video games and pause and watch the show. Usually I'm just sitting at my computer playing some old Command and Conquer stuff while I got the show on my phone, and I'll pause the game when we get to a really cool action scene. Quick rundown of season 1 and 2 before I talk about these 3 episodes. So the first season, I didn't watch it like right when it came on. I believe it was like late 21, early 22. But I was on an assignment in Louisville for a week, and so that night at the hotel, or that week at the hotel in the evenings, I would just watch season 1, and I got really into it. At that point, I had read the first book and I had seen the first movie with Tom Cruise, who did a good job with the story and everything, but a big component of the character of Reacher is his physicality, and Cruise just doesn't have that. He's like 5'7". Reacher is 6'5" and massive. Like, part of his toolbox is his size and his bulk and everything, and that needed to be, I felt, represented as kind of its own character in the story, we'll say. So while I enjoyed that movie, this representation in the show I felt was a lot more compelling and exciting to watch. In the first one, he shows up in this fictional town in Georgia and uncovers a counterfeiting ring that is, as it turns out, his late brother was investigating, and he didn't know that his brother was dead. He's a drifter, he's largely incommunicado, and he has to reach out to some friends from his time in the Army as an MP and rely on their help to get to the bottom of this case and get justice for his brother. The setting itself was a strong character. This, what was the name of the town? Margrave, Georgia. And the supporting cast was really great. I already forgot the name of he wasn't the police chief, he was the detective. Was it Finley? I can't remember. The gentleman from Boston who was always wearing a tweed suit. Anyway, and Roscoe, the police officer chick who was totally hot for him. And Paul Hubble. I remember also that Paul Hubble's wife was played by Kristen Crook, who was on Smallville as Lana Lang. I was like, man, I haven't seen her in anything, but I immediately recognize her because she's been freaking living in an hourglass ever since then and hasn't changed a bit. So that was kind of cool. Loved the cast, loved the resolution. The action was great. The dialogue was quippy. There were a couple of moments where the writing fell flat. I'm not going to tear it apart. It was an enjoyable watch. It's one of those where, I don't know, like there were pieces of it where I might punch up the writing if it were me, but whatever. Like it didn't completely detract from the overall experience of watching it. I don't mind. Season 2 was also exciting. What was the time difference between that? I think it came out in late 2023. So overall, there was maybe 2 years between seasons there. That's kind of normal for streaming shows. They invest in one season and then they've got to wait to see if it takes off before they can do another one. But this one, I think they realized they had a hit on their hands, and so they greenlit season 3. Season 2 was adapted from the 11th book in the series, which is right around the point that I stopped reading the books just because they kind of got repetitive. But it's fine. They're not bad. I was just like, okay, I'm looking for some novelty at this point. But he meets up with his old special investigators unit from the military police, and they help him. He helps them because he finds out that some of his old team members are getting killed off one by one, and the surviving members have to get together and figure out what to do and what's going on and why. That one felt less upbeat than the first season. Oddly, it felt colder, if that's a good way of describing it, just because the first one was in the South. It was kind of the springtime, summertime. Everything was like bright and energetic, as the South tends to be. This one, if I understand right, the book takes place between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. They changed that for the series, probably for filming purposes, because they needed a big city, but also a place where you could gamble. So they alternated it, between New York and New Jersey and Atlantic City, so that they could still have the whole like hotel and casino element of it, and tell it accurately that way. The story overall, was similar. There was a whole bit about stealing guided rockets and having flashbacks to his team and stuff. My main hang-up with that series or with that season was one particular part where like a truck driver was hauling guided rockets out of a facility in Colorado, and he pulls over when there's a truck on the side of the road up ahead of him in the opposite lane, and he's like, "Hey, what's going on? Can I help you out?" And like that set off all kinds of alarm bells for me as a truck driver, because if he's hauling rockets, chances are he's hauling hazardous materials. The fuel would have to be classified, and he would have to be notified of that, unless they're so dumb that they would mark it as something else. And then this is an arms facility. Like, you'd have to know going into it that this is what you're hauling, something dangerous out of there. If you're going to pretend like he's not hauling a hazardous load and a high value load, then you've got to give some lip service as to why. The thing with high value loads is you specifically don't pull over on the side of the road for things like this, because high value loads are targeted for inside jobs. You've got to kind of operate under the assumption that you're pulling something, you're going to keep moving, you're going to be aware of things like this happening to you, and you just don't fall for it. The guy immediately falls for it, gets griefed, his truck gets hijacked. It's all part of the plot, but I was like, okay, that was kind of dumb. Anyway, they stop the bad guys because it's a Reacher story. They always stop the bad guys. Reacher bags a hot chick a couple of times. Things go well from there, and then he says goodbye to his friend Neely, who is one of those special investigators, and he gets a bus pass for a year out of the money that they take from the bad guys in this operation, and he goes back on the road. So this third season is developed from the 7th book in the series, and this is where it gets a little bit more intense than the other ones, because rather than him just randomly wandering into trouble, he finds out that somebody from his past who he thought was dead is still alive and deeply embedded in a criminal operation that the DEA is trying to get a handle on. And so he starts operating with the DEA to go undercover and embed himself in this operation, under his own name, because, hey, you can't really hide a guy like Jack Reacher, and ingratiate himself with this criminal enterprise to A, find out what they're really doing, and B, get to the bottom of the disappearance of this guy that he thought was dead, and like what he's doing now in charge of this criminal operation in New England. 3 episodes in, the story's moving at a pretty good pace. There are a couple of moments where I'm like, all right, this is a little bit slow here. Kind of need to amplify it. But, overall, it's consistent with what the tone has been before. Some of the characters, you're just like, okay, they're here to serve a purpose, and the story is moving along. They're not like, oh, okay, I want to know more about this guy or whatever. Like, some of them just do a little bit of exposition and the story keeps going. That's consistent with the tone of the books. Overall, it's enjoyable to watch. Do I have any hang-ups besides that? There's a female lead, Susan Duffy. She's this DEA investigator who she was trying to catch this bad guy who's in charge of this crime ring, and he got away on a technicality because they screwed up a warrant, and now this might be her last chance. Plus, a CI that she used is in danger, and they're trying to figure out how to save her. Her character is supposed to be from New England, like from Boston, and her Boston accent is inconsistent, and I can't decide if it's authentic or not. There are times when she just talks normal, and there are other times when she talks really Boston. Like, oh, I hate Tom Brady. He's such a traitor. He left the New England Patriots. It's there are times when it's like, okay, I just need to know like whether this is legit or not. But anyway, it doesn't detract from the overall enjoyability of the show. This is the kind of thing that I'm looking for in a bit of like a thriller, caper, spy, military overlap type story. And while Reacher, kind of as a rule, as a character, doesn't necessarily change, he's just the biggest, strongest guy who goes in and solves problems by being the biggest and the strongest. he's being challenged in a different way because this isn't outright about him jumping into a dangerous situation and punching and killing his way through it. He's got to be subtle. He's got to be patient. He's got to be sneaky. And those are things that he can do. We just haven't seen him do them a whole lot yet. And there's also the additional excitement factor of him going up against a guy named Paul, who's even bigger than he is. It's been like one of the big marketing pushes was, in the books, there was this character, a guy named Paul, who was even bigger than Reacher. And they had to go find this freaking 7-foot tall Dutch bodybuilder to play this character. They've already had some good interactions, and you can tell they're ramping up to the big like Reacher versus Dutch giant battle that's going to happen at some point, probably in the season finale. So far good. A little bit of action, a little bit of fisticuffs, some shootouts and stuff. And as far as language, it's mostly from the Boston lady and the evil henchmen in this one, dropping F-bombs left and right. So just be advised on that. But hey, it's an enjoyable show. It's weird how like you don't really have like any of the lefty people in the culture war fighting against it. It's always the righties being like, oh, freaking Alan Richardson hates Trump people. It's like, you know what? He's an actor. Most of them do. Like, you want to enjoy something or not? Like, whatever. You guys know where I stand on the culture war at this point. I'm done fighting about it. It's stupid. I'm looking for things that I like, and I'm going to keep finding them. Hey, Reacher's one of them. 3 episodes in, pretty good. See where it goes from here. We get 5 more weeks of new Reacher coming in, and then we'll find something else to look forward to. All right, those are my 2 cents. If you're watching it, let me know what you think. Till next time, drive safe. See you out there.